It's back and bigger than ever. It's the unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carey, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
All right, and welcome back. I can't, my voice is screwed.
Guess so.
I think I got that upper GI, and it's just like I can't do high notes anymore. So either that or I'm dying, and I've got cancer of the throat. So welcome back. It's the unofficial 40 podcast. The Sooner Scoop crew is here. We've given George the podcast off because he's got so much crap going on right now.
No, let's just say what happened. He's suspended. He's suspended for 1 week.
He's not suspended.
How
Howie
about
Day
Team
is
Norman?
suspended. That's who's suspended. I curse you, Eddie Ratto, because you have been I've been singing "Collide" all morning long.
Great song. Howie Day. Such a
banger
classic.
back in the day.
It's such a classic. One of my best friends from high school.
Is that like his wedding song?
No, very single. He had, well, actually, maybe not. Had a Howie Day CD that he took with him his freshman year of college, and they live in the fraternity house at Oklahoma State. Mm-hmm. And I think by like the second weekend of school, he got it taken away. Like his parents had taken it away. Some of the upperclassmen took it away.
They were sick of hearing Howie Day.
Well, they would get back from the bars at whatever time, and I guess it would just be blaring throughout the Sigma Nu house in Stillwater. And they took it away from him and hid it for like a year.
Deservedly
classic
so.
song, though.
Yeah,
classic song, and still haven't heard back from Lincoln Riley.
All right,
that album had quite a few songs on it that I remember liking. So anyway, we are here, SMU week. And it's been a lot of stuff. We've already had media. It's Wednesday, Monday, and Tuesday. We had media. Brent Venables had his press conference yesterday. George has been tracking the city of Norman proposal for this, pretty much the same thing they proposed back in 2017. George keeps saying it's in a different place. I don't believe it's in a different place. It was always going to be north of Rock Creek there, right on I-35. That's where this proposal is. Sorry, George, I know you're not here to defend yourself.
I think it's like a mile or half a mile. I know that area is really close over there, but same idea.
Right. I mean, it's there at University North Park. Rock Creek is where it's across the street. Like there's like the Guitar Center and
I think it's like technically
I never heard of anything else there.
Technically, I think it is like outside of the North Park area on the map that they showed this morning. I don't know. It doesn't.
Well, there's
really
like
matter.
a steel yard like right up against the highway there on the corner. Then there's the armory on the other side. But I will say this: it would be more convenient to get to that location for people coming from Oklahoma City because you can get off onto Tecumseh. You can't get off on Rock Creek, which is kind of weird.
Correct. That is
they used to have that artillery mound there that they knocked down when they started doing all this stuff. And University North Park, it's University Park North, I think. Anyway, they're building a lot of stuff there. There's a lot of restaurants and stuff. It's the newer part of town. Trey Young's place
almost
is
done.
almost done. Yeah,
Yep.
It's coming along really quickly. That's the not the Family Life Center. That's what the Baptist churches in Oklahoma had, like youth center or whatever that thing.
But it's going to bring a lot of
AAU tournaments and stuff.
A
like
lot
that.
of Adidas tournaments will be coming to Norman. I'm excited about that.
So an entertainment district, if it passes, University of Oklahoma would be a major tenant, and basketball, women's and men's would play there. They'd probably have a lot of wrestling stuff there. But the plan is it's like going to have restaurants and I don't know. You got Riverwind, you got the Criterion downtown. Plus you got whatever the arena is going to be over the next few years. Like how many concerts are going to come to Norman for that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I have no idea.
It would, I would imagine it'd be like BOK, Paycom is where all the big acts go. I don't think they're going to. It's 8,000
8,000's nice, though.
Yeah.
Stadium, which
Perfect number for current college basketball standards.
right, yeah. I mean, there's no reason to build 15,000 seats. I know people are like, why is it so small? Because 8,000 people rarely go to basketball games, men's college in this state, especially since the Thunder have been here. So George is kind of working on that story, plus stuff from this week. I got invited to go talk to Al's class, and I'm dragging Eddie and George with me to all class things now. That's just how it works. So I don't have to talk for an hour, basically. And there's going to be an interesting thing that happens in that, because George did not take Al's class, Al loves George, and he wants to know exactly what the story was behind there. So George has got to lie a little bit coming up later. Anyway, we welcome in Josh McQuistion. Josh, we've had some visits over the weekend. I think we might as well start with our Enjoy Vision, fresh perspective, look around, and start with the recruiting because you're coming off some visits. We didn't really have a chance to do a YouTube video about the visits. There were only a couple official, right, too? And then two. You had the Bussy stuff that was out there, but fill us in a little bit on kind of how the weekend went for Oklahoma. Danny Okoye in, and some decisions are getting ready to happen again.
Yeah, I think Danny Okoye is obviously the name everybody else is going to want to hear about and talk about, the big-time defensive end from Tulsa, Noah. Talking to Danny really through the weekend, Danny, and I just communicate a lot, and he clearly loved the trip. I mean, I think it was a big, we knew, and I talked about it last week, this was going to be huge for how he looked at Oklahoma and kind of what the final stretch of his recruitment was going to be, because prior to last weekend, he was talking about making a decision in October. This was probably going to be his last chance to visit Norman before that decision came to pass. And now I'm not so sure I would say that anymore. Both the decision in October, nor do I think it has to be his last visit to Oklahoma before his decision. So Danny is very high on Oklahoma at the moment. I think that visit did a lot for him. He's still planning to visit Texas for Wyoming, obviously, in a couple of weeks, I guess about a week and a half now. So there are still teams in play, but I think it's Oklahoma, Texas, and Tennessee, and I really think it's Oklahoma and Tennessee. I think the proximity is favoring Oklahoma. I know you talk to some people around Tulsa, they act like OU is in very, very good shape. So
what do you think changed?
I said, I think – go ahead.
What do you think changed from this last weekend? Like what made the biggest imprint on them?
I think Danny so much wanted to see Oklahoma make progress. And, we talked about it in the postgame pod. I think we saw signs of that. And I think at the same time, it's kind of perfect for Oklahoma. The defense is clearly improving. The talent's getting better. The assignment football is getting better. But who was the pass rusher? I mean, like, who is out there that Danny's going to say to himself, I can't have a role next year. I can't be that guy. There's nobody that's going to scare him off. And obviously, we think a guy like PJ Adebawore is extremely talented, but there's no reason they can't be opposite of each other. That's the way a confident guy like Danny's going to look at that. So now I want to temper everybody. I think Danny has a lot to learn, and obviously coming from very, very small school football, it's going to be a big jump for him. But Danny's 6'4", 240, and runs like there's no tomorrow. So, I mean, like, the tools are there. It's going to be at that point, how much does he work? How much can Miguel Chavis help get him ready? All those things that we know. But I would say from a physical standpoint, he's more mature at the same point than PJ Adebawore was. I mean, Danny is a weight room guy. So I think it was really I think all along Danny has wanted to believe in the vision Brent Venables has for Oklahoma, the idea of what that defense can be, but last year shook him. I mean, like there's no question that impacted the way he was looking at the program.
Are you worried at all that this is a lot of talk and euphoria of the visit Sunday, Monday, but then as he gets to Texas, then all of a sudden we do shift to October, November? Like, this process does take a little bit longer again.
This is Danny Okoye. I am going to be prepared for all curveballs. And, I think that's probably something Oklahoma, I'm not going to say they're going to be excited about it, but they're okay with it. I mean, because, we were talking before the pod, guys, there's not a lot of targets left on the board for Oklahoma. I mean, there's not a lot remaining out there, so they can still pour a lot of attention, a lot of energy into him, and can do so for a guy that's, an hour and a half drive from Oklahoma Stadium. So it's something where I think they feel like whether it's now or later, if they're doing what they need to on the field, the rest probably takes care of itself. But again, you're right. Texas, we know they're going to roll out the red carpet for Danny. They want him. But I wonder, should they land Zena Umeozulu, who we expect to pick Texas to follow his brother Neto, they land him and Colin Simmons. You're talking about three players of very similar roles, similar body types. Now, Danny's much more physically developed than those two are, but they're going to be expected to be similar styles. And I think Danny's a smart guy, and he's going to be aware of that. And it's not to say that Texas can't overcome that, but I do think that would be a hurdle.
It's just funny hearing you talk about Danny Okoye and thinking how he's playing at homeschool football in the state of Oklahoma, and then compared to like somebody like a Zena or whoever, and he's more physically advanced than those guys, and you see what they do on a Friday night at some of the bigger high schools in the state of Texas.
I have heard stories when you go up to Noah practices that, like, if they're on a Noah has to travel a lot, goes to a lot of different games all around the country. I hear stories about him getting into like hotel workout areas at like 2 a.m. Like, he just can't sleep and he'll go work out. Like, I mean, that is Danny's
Same. I know how that
wiring.
feels.
Yeah, I know you do, Eddie. I know you do. You're committed to the grind.
That's right.
But there is, like I said, he's a unique guy that is very self-motivated. When you talk to people around him, I mean, Danny has this personality that I think people will assume kind of means like, oh, he's kind of a diva and he's kind of about himself. But, like, he's always taken teammates with him to stuff. Like, he likes to share some of that spotlight, but he's also a guy that works his butt off. I mean, like, yeah, guys, you've seen the kid. You don't look like that if you're not working in the weight room. Like, he's just a big old massive dude, and he's still got to learn a lot. And I think technically he is incredibly raw, especially compared to guys like you're talking about, Colin Simmons at Duncanville, Zena Umeozulu at Allen. I mean, those are some of the most well-coached programs in the country. And that's not a shot at Noah. Noah just has a small staff. I mean, it's a small little school and, a very niche kind of deal. I would guess before Danny Okoye, 99% of the people in our listenership have never heard of Tulsa Noah.
Outside the official visits, obviously you see a lot of buzz about guys having good visits, but, unofficially, officially, whatever, what was kind of the big takeaway from this weekend for you?
Well, I did want to, obviously Danny's the headliner, but in England, the headliner is the number one player in the country, Daniel Akinkunmi. Bob, do you have something?
No, the number one player in the country. That's right.
Yeah. I mean, I plan to use that headline as often as humanly possible. But yeah, he's a guy that
we know that
has canceled all of his, or not canceled, but he is elected to not take some of the official visits he was talking about. And I know people will kind of look at his offer list and be a little skeptical, but I mean, this guy was going to take trips to Clemson, Michigan, Ole Miss. I mean, some big visits, and he just said, no, I think I'm going to focus on my team. He's already said October 12th as his announcement date. For those out there that keep track of this, that is the birthday of a family member of mine. And so that seems to bode well for Oklahoma. When I have a conflict in schedule, that seems to go well. So read into that how you will. But I definitely like where Oklahoma is for him. Another guy, very raw, a lot of work to do, but the raw tools are off the charts. I mean, he is a Bill Bedenbaugh special. If he will buy in, do the things he needs to do, and he talked about that. A big part of what he loved about the Oklahoma trip was the players telling him, hey, man, if you want to be great, this is where you got to be. Like, Bill's going to push you and get everything he can out of you. And I think he bought into that. I mean, he sees Oklahoma as a good fit for what his personal goals are, because he said he wants to be the greatest offensive lineman to ever play the game. Now, I know that's a massive thing for a 18-year-old kid to say, but if you're going to go chase it, I mean, you got to believe you're working with a guy who can do it, and that seems to be what he came away with. As far as, any other kind of quick notes, obviously Terry Bussey being there was huge. I continue to hear that Oklahoma likes how that's going. They think they're in good shape there. but at the same time, I think they know Texas A&M's the favorite. I mean, they know that's going to be tough to overcome, but he loves Emmett Jones. There's no question. That relationship is very strong. I think if all things are equal, I think Oklahoma might be the choice. I'm just not sure everything is going to be equal. Read into that how you will with the Texas A&M decision. But and I guess, finally, one of the big ones that was really interesting, Nate Roberts getting back on campus, the Washington tight end. It was his first time back since decommitting from Notre Dame. Or was he at Sooners in the Sun? I'm trying to remember. I have to hang on. I've got my list here. But I mean, either way, he wasn't. Okay, I'm not totally crazy. But I like where that's headed. I've got a prediction in for him with Oklahoma. I don't think it's immediate. I don't think it's going to happen in the next week or anything like that, but it does feel like he and Oklahoma have really pivoted from what was kind of a rocky relationship through the spring and summer.
So wild to me. I know that we were talking before we got started, Josh, that you probably need to start looking at 2025 guys, but with Nate Roberts in particular, for some reason, I just can't wrap my head around the idea that he's still a junior.
It feels like he's one of those guys that's been around for so long,
right,
Eddie. I mean, we knew about him because of Jake. Everybody was like, oh, Jake's little brother, you got to watch him. Nate, he's going to be a good one. And then he makes the move to Washington and everybody gets excited. And so I think it was just, he's had a lot of things that, caught people's attention. And then obviously all that, like we've said, have transpired with Jake's recruitment, once he left North Texas and all that's happened. I think he's just been very focal, but it is crazy to think that, like, as much as we've talked about him, he's still got basically 2 full years of high school football to go. But this is, again, guys, 2 or 3 months ago, we were talking about the shape that tight end room is in and what it was going to look like, not only this year, but the future. But if your next 2 tight ends are Devon Mitchell and Nate Roberts, hey, I'm not saying problem solved or mission accomplished, but you are absolutely on the right track, there for Joe John Finley.
I mean, I guess I'm stating the obvious here, but that'd be one of the better classes, not only that he's brought in, but I mean, maybe, I don't want to say all time because I don't think I can recall just all the tight end classes they've brought in, but that would be unbelievable. And, I guess considering what they were able to put on the field on Saturday, I don't know. I feel a little bit better about that room all of a sudden.
Well, and you got to remember, though, Eddie, I mean, I totally get how this happened. Devon Mitchell's 2024 now.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. That's true. That's true. I'm an idiot.
Yeah. So a little different, but I mean, I hear what you're saying completely. I mean, that you get those two in back-to-back years and your tight end room, and I think that is what made it all kind of work because I think Oklahoma did want both, but it was going to be tough to A, make the numbers work, and B, how they were going to figure that way through that. And then guys, Eddie, just to focus on this, the current roster, what you saw Cade McIntyre the other day gives you some reason to think like, okay, this guy might be a player down the road. I mean, he's not, like Brent said, he's not ready to be all Big 12 or anything right now, but there's very much a world where you could see Oklahoma going, double tight with Blake Smith and Cade McIntyre and Devon Mitchell, some sort of mixture of those guys going forward.
Yeah, and it kind of gives you a little bit of confidence, like maybe they're headed back into the era where you had Mark Andrews followed up by like a Grant Calcaterra before all his injuries, and then what you thought was going to be Austin Stogner, which hasn't really played out like we maybe thought, but it gives you kind of a blueprint to think, okay, maybe there's a lineage beginning again at the tight end position.
Unrelated, but it kind of made me think of that just as far as some of the stuff Andrew Rahm said last night as far as they want to be able to mash people, I think was his quote.
Dominate.
It seems like
mash.
Jeff Lebby's identity of this offense is starting to take a little bit more hold as far as what they want to be able to do. Obviously running the ball quite a bit is going to be front and center with Jeff, but it seems like almost in a way, I don't want to call it the stank of Lincoln Riley and what he had offensively because it was really, really good. But it does seem like this offense is starting to feel or at least talk kind of more like what Jeff talks about on Mondays with us.
Yeah, and I tell you what, do we want to hit on? Was there anything else recruiting wise we wanted to hit on before we go full on?
Nigel Smith, or do we want to wait later?
Yeah,
No, I think so. We can preview it towards the end, or we can do it now. It doesn't matter. Yeah. So Friday, Oklahoma finds out the verdict with top 100 defensive lineman Nigel Smith, one of their key targets for a couple of years now. This was a guy that Oklahoma almost immediately upon Brent Venables' arrival knew he was going to be a focus, and has worked really hard to get him in the boat. And I mean, you're talking about a kid that took a lot of official visits: Ohio State, Penn State, Oklahoma, Texas. Did end up visiting Texas, Texas A&M. So he has, if Oklahoma can close this deal, which I expect they will, that's my current prediction and has been for a while. That's a huge win. I mean, it's a statement of them kind of continuing this defensive line momentum, which they've been tracking for. I mean, they've been trying to find some footing, and it feels like with David Stone on board, and I'm not saying these things are all related, but it does feel like Oklahoma's starting to trend in the right direction with that defensive line room with Jaden Jackson, Wyatt Gilmore, then you add David, and now it looks good with Danny Okoye. They should I expect them to land Nigel Smith on Friday, barring some late change. So I just think this is, again, it's a sign of, for the people that kind of doubted Miguel Chavis and doubted Todd Bates and were very worried about the defensive line, like, they're going to get quality players. Now, they're not going to get everybody. When you're chasing all these elite guys, Alabama, Georgia, Texas, all these other schools, they still exist, man, and they're really, really good too. So it's not going to be easy. You're going to take some tough losses. And again, I mean, who knows? There is, I know I've had some people hit me up after the Clemson debacle with, stuff about Bryant Westco. Like, could he come back into play? That kind of stuff. I don't think so. But again, this is, guys, look at this time last year. OU was going to get David Hicks. Colton Vosick was committed. You can go down the list. Stuff changes. Oklahoma will be fine so long as they handle business on the field. That is the one thing I can say with confidence. They are trending in the right direction, but they have to handle what they control.
Josh, you mentioned Smith, and because we have known him for like the last couple of years, has he changed as a player? What position do you see him as?
Well, what position I see him as and what position Nigel sees himself as are a little at odds. I think he's a 3-technique defensive tackle. He's not squatty at all. Like, I don't want people to misunderstand that at all. Nigel's a big, broad kid, probably 6'4", 275. I mean, he's very well put together. And his dad's like 6'7". His dad's enormous. So Nigel may still have some room to grow. So I wouldn't say defensive end is impossible. And I think Nigel Smith can be a perfectly good college defensive end. But it's what I always talk about. What is your best future? And his best future, to me, is being an ultra-athletic interior defensive lineman rather than a good kind of run-stuffing defensive end that's going to be good for 6.5, 7 sacks. Maybe a good comparison for Nigel Smith as a defensive end is like a guy like David King, like a good player. Clearly a good player.
That is nice almost like, at OU. That's like the perfect
spot
body
on,
style from what I've seen Nigel as. Mm-hmm. Just seeing him at camps and stuff. I haven't seen him in a game.
Yeah. Because, like David, big guy, real strong, long arms. Like, there's a lot to like, but how far can he take it? Now, the difference is David arrived at like 240, I want to say, out of high school in Houston. And Nigel's going to show up to Norman. I bet he's 270 if he's a day. So there's not that big gulf. Like, you could kind of let it happen, kind of like what we're seeing with Grayson Holt, like where he's just slowly getting bigger and stronger, more powerful. And you keep that athleticism that he already has because, we talk about this all the time. It's something that they've been doing in football for 30 years now. A good athlete at defensive end becomes a great athlete at defensive tackle, and that's what I think will eventually happen. But I think they've got to convince him that that's the best move for him. It's a lot like Gabe Dindy a couple years ago, where Gabe Dindy wouldn't hear that he was defensive tackle. He shows up to A&M and they move him to defensive tackle in about 10 minutes. Like, sometimes you got to kind of work that in. And again, it's a deal where you say, hey, look, You can be a defensive end. We're going to give you that chance, and you can stay there if that's what you want to do. But your chance to be the best player you can be may be to slide inside. Now, that's not saying that OU has said that to him or made that decision. That's just my expectation of the way it'll play out.
It's just amazing to think the last 4 weeks we've dealt with a top 100 defensive lineman from Williams, Winery, David Stone, Dominic McKinley, and now Nigel Smith. And get 50% of it, that wouldn't be bad.
So I guess Danny Okoye has to go next weekend just to keep it hot, right? Just to keep the whole thing going?
Yes. You need to tell him that, yes.
I will pass on that memo. Hey, Danny, we've got a streak going in OU recruiting. You need to change your life now. So, yeah, like I said, I don't think, Bob, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we're really missing. This weekend, I don't think is going to be, it certainly won't be as big with official visitors that aren't committed. I'm not expecting any uncommitted players in for officials. But, you're going to have some good ones. Jalen Beckley kind of made a late change. He was expecting to show up in a few weeks. Kid that picked up his offer during OU's camp this summer. Lamont Rogers, the big-time guy from Mesquite Horn, probably a top 50 overall player in the country. He'll be on campus. Got Christian Thatcher coming back, linebacker from Las Vegas that I know Oklahoma likes a lot. I don't know if Brent Venables is trying to bring back memories of Ryan Reynolds or what that is, but,
right.
We'll see.
Well, and don't you think, Josh, you've got all these guys that are, I don't know, not locked in, but and I know Clemson's not really playing the portal game, but when you see teams that are having disappointing seasons, the portal's got to make it a lot more interesting because not only are you looking at the signees you got, but it's like I don't really want to know if I want to say this or not. So
you look at a team lose, and all of a sudden it's like, we could maybe use somebody like that.
Well, you think Lincoln Riley's not going to be doing that? You're crazy.
You start what? It was his 40th birthday. Can we give the guy a break?
But no, I wonder, how that's going to look, because we were talking to someone the other day, and he covers a school that's known for a lot of transfers, and like I was walking past the other room, and it was almost like, so hey, how's this kid doing? Is he struggling still? Like, do you think he might want to come back? And transfer? Like, it's like everybody's kind of got their feelers out, trying to figure out who's poachable or not.
Oh, yeah. Because, guys, while coaches can't talk with players, man, you've got uncles and cousins and, the handlers, however you want to call them. They're out there making phone calls right now. Like, I can tell you that there used to be times when I would say, I don't know why OU's not working harder at defensive tackle. And, like, it would be like, okay, I don't know why that they aren't. Now, if they don't, you're like, they've heard somebody's coming through the portal they got a chance at. Like, there is a reason for that hesitation that you can believe in. And
well, I saw something today where, a coach was talking about, this is really hurting freshmen. This is hurting guys that are getting recruited. And it's not really hurting the big names, but it's hurting the 3-star. It's hurting the guy, the evaluated guy that maybe some guys like, but he only has group of 5 offers. Like, that's who it's really hurting, isn't it?
Well, I think it depends on how you want to look at it, because the kid, that maybe would have signed for, let's say, Oklahoma State, the 3-star that was going to go to OSU. Well, instead he ends up at Tulsa. And instead of setting the bench for 2 years at Oklahoma State, he's a 2-year starter at Tulsa and then goes and makes his move to OSU or OU or wherever the hell he wants to go. And he's got some tape that people can watch and they can dig into. And, so I think it's one of those things where people always say that, but they lose, like, the number of players that are on on scholarship at these schools hasn't changed. Like, it's still a net zero. Like, there's no change in the numbers. So it just moves differently. So the kid the 3-star kid takes the spot from a guy that takes Troy Everett's spot. He leaves Appalachian State and comes to Oklahoma. Well, the kid that was going to go to Oklahoma goes to Appy State, starts for a couple of years, and then he goes to North Carolina or OU or wherever he's going to go. So I think it's harder. To me, the schools that it's hardest on are the G5, because they know if they get a really elite player. I mean, we used to see like guys like Ben Roethlisberger and Byron Leftwich and all that kind of stuff at the G5. Those guys are going to go make big bucks at Power Fives now. I mean, like, look at Sam Hartman. He left the ACC school to go make real money in the Power.
Well, you know what that requires? That requires a lot of foresight, a lot of evaluation, and a lot of vision, Eddie.
It does indeed. And, I don't know if, you don't have to have like a major NIL deal because of my friends over at Enjoy Vision. It is the best laser vision center in Oklahoma City, not even close. I don't think I can read today.
I think you're proving that, yeah.
Interesting. Combination of mind-blowing technology, experienced eyeball surgeons, and exceptional patient care was life-changing for me. What they're doing for the U40 listener is they're offering $400 off LASIK. All you got to do is go to enjoywithme.com. That is the letter N, J-O-Y, withme.com, and use promo code U40 if you're interested in getting LASIK. That is $400 off. Enjoy Vision. This is where you LASIK.
I think it's okay that you can't read it. Apparently, I'm going through reverse puberty because my voice is getting lower, and I can't hit high notes anymore. So I'm not sure what's going on there. Anyway, okay, let's get into a little bit of what we've seen on the field. I mean, obviously, we're talking portal transfers. The big discussion got started, and Brent was asked about this. You guys talked about this on your YouTube show yesterday. And by the way, Sooner Scoop or YouTube.com/Sooner Scoop. Go subscribe, like, tell your friends. It's one of the fastest growing channels out there right now, I think. But yeah, we appreciate everybody. We're well over 10,000 subscribers now to the channel, so we continue to grow. It's because we're doing really good content. So come check it out and be a part of that. And by the way, the score cell hit big for OU fans. Deadsoxy.com, DEADSOXY. It's not 73% off. They capped it at 40% off. But now is the time to go and load up on Dead Soxy. Use that promo code SCOOP, and it's going to get you 40% off your entire order, only up until kickoff of the SMU game. So if you're listening to this pod on a Thursday, driving up on Saturday, know that you have to get to the website and get your order in with that promo SCOOP so you can get 40% off your Dead Soxy offer. So thanks to Dead Soxy for doing that for us. And thanks to Oklahoma for scoring 73 points to get you 40% off. That's DEADSOXY. And as always, stay Soxy. Okay, yeah, I mean, the Clemson thing, it brought up a lot of interesting discussions, especially on the heels of Deion Sanders beating TCU. And I finally got a chance to kind of watch that TCU game a little bit. And it, I mean, their defense was terrible, but I don't think it means TCU's trash. Now, Baylor losing as they did and losing Blake Shapen, I mean, that's a killer for them. Like, that's another program, Josh. I don't know how well they were recruiting, but you got to think people are, like, lining up to take Dave Aranda's players, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
I mean, guys, does it feel like something's wrong at Baylor? Like, there's no reason for Baylor to look that bad defensively. And I know Aranda made the change with the defensive coordinator from the guy, the Roberts guy that he'd known forever. So I don't know if there's like bad vibes or something. Like, I can't figure it out.
Matt Rule's players all just disappear overnight? Yeah. I mean, they would have. I mean,
we watched a little bit of that game while we were working on Saturday night. Texas State looked faster with offensive skill players than Baylor. Like, Baylor looked like a team that was moving in mud.
Yeah, like I said, it's I don't know. Something feels off there because I love Jeff Grimes. That offense looked out of order.
I love Jeff Grimes.
The whole change, the whole change from and I know it's a year gone by now, but from Jerry Bohannon to Blake Shapen does not seem like that's been a choice that's worked out very well. I mean, that. I don't know. Like, it just and you wonder, like, did that start the problem? Like, you benched this guy who'd won us a Big 12 title, something that Baylor doesn't do a lot, and you put in this young guy who I get, again, if he goes and sets the world on fire, okay, fine, but that clearly hasn't happened.
I do think that it's going to be super interesting going into this week, particularly with a Baylor hosting Utah on Saturday, and then the Tech thing Saturday night late night
Oregon
was just a complete disaster.
Oh, the
up
Wyoming
in,
thing.
Up in Laramie, but this week with Oregon after they score 81, I think that Tech, quote unquote, bounces back and it doesn't get just run out of the stadium like a lot of people think they will. Same thing. I don't know if I'm ready to say this out loud yet, but same thing with Nebraska. I think they're going to give Colorado everything that they want. And we'll see how some of these teams adjust from week 1 to week 2. But that was a really disappointing start for, what is going to be left of the Big 12. Even BYU, I mean, they scored 14 I think 14 nothing on San
Yeah,
Houston
14 nothing.
It was so weird
gross.
watching Matt Rule during that Minnesota-Nebraska game because
I feel bad for
the
those
last
people.
time I saw him. I don't feel bad for Butch Jones. I feel bad for Matt Rule. The last time we saw Matt Rule, he was Baylor's coach. Very confident, on top of the world. And I got to say, I didn't see a lot of Carolina football because it's hard to see Carolina football when unless you have the direct TV package, which is now YouTube. I know people have heard the ads on the podcast. But to see Matt Rule have that befuddled look on his face like he did in the fourth quarter coaching Nebraska, I was like, he just figured out what he signed up for. He figured out, he's the coach of a cursed program now, apparently.
Is Casey Thompson that much worse than Sims?
No, I don't think so.
That feels like another
Sims was.
type
I mean,
of
he made
move
terrible
you're making.
decisions. Casey Thompson, I don't think he might have made some throws that were not questionable, but he might have thrown into bad situations. But Sims just he makes terrible throws.
Nebraska and Clemson, and I would imagine Baylor to a certain extent, all learned a tough lesson over the weekend that you just can't turn the ball over, and especially late in games.
I mean, Clemson, what they did was unbelievable.
It's kind of crazy.
Not punt,
To not punt.
and to not, what was the other? They never punted, but they never scored.
Yeah,
correct.
They didn't
Second
punt
half.
in the game in the second half. I was really disappointed with Cade Klubenik. I thought that he was going to set up to have a really good year. But, I think that that's probably been rehashed here over the last couple of days since the end of that game. They don't have anybody on the outside that can go make a play.
That's the shocking thing. And I heard, I think it was Josh Pate saying the same thing. Where is Clemson special? Where do they have guys that are playmakers? I couldn't agree more. Will Shipley is a really good player. I can get there. Who else? Who else excites you or definitely tells you anything? Because, guys, Clemson got manhandled in the trenches.
Yeah.
I never thought in a million years I'd say that sentence against Duke.
As bad as Clemson was Monday night, I kind of walked away pretty impressed with Duke. Riley Leonard's a guy that I think a lot of people in college football are excited about, but up front, if they can run the ball like that, Duke could make a little noise. All of a sudden, I'm kind of interested in seeing what Duke and Florida State do on October 21st. Duke plays Notre Dame, too.
I felt like Duke broke Clemson more than they dominated physically. I felt like at the start of after halftime, remember the Florida State LSU game? Florida State came out, they went with some heavy sets in the run game and just started running the ball down LSU's throat. And it was bizarre because you never see that happen to LSU. And they just got physically dominated by Florida State. And I started to think that was the same thing that was going to happen with Clemson. But you turn the ball over twice inside the 10-yard line. It doesn't matter how much you stuff the ball down their throat.
As bad as everybody wanted. And, Klubenik was not good. They missed on a lot of stuff.
Clemson should have won that game.
They should have won the game.
They should have won
everybody's ready to bury Clemson, but they still had over 400 yards of offense, which was kind of obscene considering how badly they got beat. It just
add up. It went off the rails. They should have been beaten that bad, and they just quit though. Duke just caught them, off guard a little bit with a run here and there, and then it snowballed on them.
And you just think what a Keon Coleman could do for Clemson.
Oh man, Keon Coleman! I sat there watching him and Trey Bradford breaks off that big run at the beginning of the game. I was like, oh boy.
Well, guys, and I come out of this first real week, and to me, Florida State and Notre Dame are the two biggest teams that I'm like, those are possible playoff teams. more than anyone. And I'm not talking about Michigan or Georgia or Alabama. I'm talking about the ones that we don't really think of. And we weren't really, a lot of people weren't penciling those guys into a 4-team playoff. But to me, Notre Dame and Florida State were by far the most impressive.
It's definitely not going to be popular on this podcast, but I guess you walk out of week 2 and you could probably say the same thing for Texas if they go down to Tuscaloosa.
Oh,
we'll see. We'll
yeah.
see. I think that there's a lot of people that looked at the score of the
You got to beat Rice
Rice
by a lot more than they did.
Well, that's what I was going to say is there's going to be a lot of people that look at the way that they played against Rice and think, oh, Alabama's just going to beat them by 2 touchdowns because it's Alabama, and rightfully so. It could very well happen.
I still don't know if Quinn Ewers is the quarterback that can lead them there.
Did we talk about it on the post-game podcast, the numbers that were floating out there on Quinn Ewers' last, I think it was 35 or maybe it was 27 throws of 30 or more. He's 3 for 24, or it was a mind-blowing number.
Guys, I mean, you look at him in that first quarter of the Alabama game last year, and it was like, holy shit, this guy is
for real.
unbelievable.
Oh, if he doesn't get hurt, they might win the game. The way that was going in the first half.
I think they might have won by 10. Bama was stymied. And that's the only thing that scares me this week if I'm Bama is clearly, even with Bryce Young, Bama struggled to move the ball consistently. I mean, because one of their touchdowns was just Jace McClellan popped. And it was really the only big play like that they had all day for Alabama's offense. But when you look at this game and you look at the way Quinn Ewers has played really ever since he returned from that injury, I mean, it's on the table that Alabama beats the brakes off Texas. I think that's a very real possibility.
You think?
Because I'm not sold on that Texas offensive line yet. I'm just not.
You think Alabama's going back and looking at Lincoln Riley's year with Jalen Hurts, with Jacob Milroe, and saying, maybe we should do some of that?
He'd be really smart to. I mean, again, we know Saban's famous for you're going to run the Alabama offense, and even the OCs that come in, even guys that are established like Reese, are like, well, you're going to run what we run, and you can learn our terminology, and then you call it however you want to from there. So I don't know how willing they are to take outside ideas, even though the crazy thing is the whole offense was built on outside ideas when Kiffin kind of famously went around the country and picking up ideas from everybody. So, like I said, there's a very real world where Texas wins this game. I'm not trying to say that not trying to be the homer guy that Texas can win this game. I've got to see a different Quinn Ewers than we've seen for over a year now.
By the way, hopefully that was my worst mistake in Jalen Milroe. I said Jacob.
I wish it was big noon kickoff because we're not going to be able to see it.
Yeah, I know. DVR sometimes worse. No, but I mean, this game proves it proves 2 things. It proves whether Texas is a legitimate college football playoff contender, and it proves is Alabama. Well, I don't think it will prove Alabama is fully back, but it can prove that they're not continuing to fall off in comparison to Georgia.
I'm going to step out on a limb and say that Nick Saban's program is going to be just fine.
The thing is, and I've heard our guy Andy Staples at On 3 say this several times, but if they go out and win this game the way I think they want to win this game, there's a very real Alabama war machine kind of thing.
Yeah.
Oh God, they're just going to line up and beat you and just punch you in the mouth for 4 quarters because they've got the offensive line and defensive line to do it. The Caden Proctor kid, I remember seeing him last year at San Antonio at the All-American Bowl, and you were like, holy crap, that's a high school kid from Iowa. And then you see the pictures of him now, and you're like, he's a mutant. That's not those people don't exist in real life. I mean, he is a 19-year-old that's 6'7", 320, and looks athletic. It's just bizarre. And they've got the Tyler Booker kid's an outstanding guard. To me, like I said, it's just if Alabama can go and dominate that game, keep guys like Xavier Worthy and JT Sanders away from the ball.
You know what's great about this discussion is it's we went to Nashville You got to meet some of the guys involved in the media biz that cover the SEC all the time. This is a preemptive SEC media whirlwind game, because I don't know if you guys heard all the stuff that Mike Bratton from that SEC podcast did. Like, he's picked Alabama to finish third in the West. So, like, if Alabama looks good in this game, SEC Mike is in some trouble, credibility-wise. And I'm sure Feinbaum's going to have him on every 5 minutes.
They love the preseason poll.
Yeah.
Just in general. It feels like the SEC folks, they love a good preseason poll. Preseason hype.
Eddie, are you
preseason.
ready to embrace it?
No, I will
that's
not.
not always your favorite time.
I will not be doing that. I like to watch the games.
I'm pretty
unfold.
sure George filled out. Did he fill out a SEC poll?
No, I think he claimed that he was, but didn't.
Yeah, like I think he thought about it and then decided he shouldn't or something like that.
Lucci.
Just journalistic
Oh, yeah.
credibility at Sooner Scoop.
Did you ask Lucci if he did? We just assumed he did.
No, I didn't ask him, but I'm sure that he did.
You know he did. You know what team had 37 players on it?
Vanderbilt.
Oh, the fighting Barton Simmons.
If we must,
We can talk
we're
OU.
46 in.
We should
and
probably talk
I'm
about
sure
OU
that
at some
I'll just
point.
put on
Little
the
OU.
I'll just put in the rundown. You can start listening here.
You
and
can
that's
hate listen for
that's-
about 10 minutes.
And guys, that's the problem. It was just such a, and we've had
was
the
an ass
post game
beating.
pod. I mean, it was such a dominating performance. We're all moving on and looking toward SMU, and
Brent clearly was.
oh man,
How fast he was going.
press conference yesterday. That was like a what do they call that big line of people that you hurry up and get through? That was what it was. He was like, question. Okay, what's your next question? Here's your quick answer. Next question. Like, it was so businesslike yesterday. You can tell that he is hyper focused on SMU this week, and talking to the players. It's kind of it hasn't been like that, but you can tell until we talked to Kenai Walker yesterday. There was nobody that was like, man, I can't believe we played that well. Like, he was like, it took me a couple of days, and he was talking about the turnover that he created and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I think everybody's just like, they know bigger things are on the horizon, and that starts this week.
Well, and I think that it's something that we've talked about, Bob, off air. Just as far as good as Oklahoma played against Arkansas State, there were guys running wide open at times, and I think that you look at what SMU, and we're going to run the interview that we did with Billy Embody that covers SMU on Thursday during the preview show on YouTube. This is an offense that SMU side of things feels like can be pretty damn good with Preston Stone.
They got a lot of names that OU fans will know. Jordan Hudson,
Jalen Knighton, LJ Johnson.
You know who these guys are and what they bring to the table.
There are a number of guys that, if shades of what Oklahoma defense, quote unquote, used to be, or what I think everybody hopes used to be, if that returns, I'm not saying that SMU is going to come in and you're going to look up in the fourth quarter and it's going to be a really good game, but I think that they could move the ball enough that makes you a little bit concerned moving forward. Fumble.
I was thinking about this the other day. Like, is there like an entire generation of OU fans that have no idea that OU used to play defense?
I mean,
maybe not a generation, but
maybe, I would imagine that the high schooler right now,
high school recruits,
not very familiar with OU playing really good defense.
Yeah, I mean, you have to go back to like 2010.
I mean, guys, yeah. I mean, this year's senior class was like 4 the last time Oklahoma was functional on defense.
Sure.
I mean,
But
consistently.
At the same time, I do think that, there were guys running wide open, but I think the positives against Arkansas State outweighed the negatives in terms of Kip Lewis seems like he's going to be a guy.
How was he to talk to yesterday? I didn't get over there by
Bob talked to him.
He was okay. I was hoping he would dig in a little bit more about being the undersized guy in the middle that's still making it work. But he's kind of saying, I'm putting on the weight, but I want to do it, the right way so that I don't blow up.
He got the frame. I mean, definitely. Like, you see him up close and personal. It's like, okay, he's not a shrimp. Like, you can tell he's going to get there.
It's just how long is it going to take? It's already his second year in the program, and you look at someone like a Kobe McKenzie or Jaron Canick, you're like, okay, that's what a guy in the middle is supposed to look like. But, I mean, he's great instincts. He was, the 4 games that he played last year, the one he started off Saturday, that's what he brings to the table.
From where this thing is coming from, I don't care what size I care what size they are, but I almost don't care what size they are as long as they know how to get to the football as fast as possible. And it seems like they have somewhat a good number of guys and a good number of newcomers, young guys on this defense that get that.
I'm marking my territory here. There'll be no Kip Lewis slander on my watch. I'm not doing it. I'll have no part in it. So I am all aboard the Kip Lewis bandwagon.
I watched those high school games. I want no part of him being mad at me.
What is your idea, Josh, on some of the stuff that's been floated out there? Like, would you be surprised if we looked up, and I think Teddy threw this out there, that all of a sudden Danny Stutzman's starting at Mike and Kip's starting at Will?
I could absolutely buy that. And I don't think it's any relation to Jaron not playing well. I thought Jaron was fine. I just think there is Kip Lewis, kind of like I talk about with Deshaun McCullough, who this is going to be a side topic for later. We got to talk about the Deshaun McCullough pronunciation that is happening all throughout this pod.
McCullough versus
all
McCullough.
our YouTube channels. If for some reason it's become McCulloch, and I've never
I don't know why.
Like that in my life.
That seems very directed, Josh.
Fine, we won't direct it to
George,
you.
Well,
it's
you've got
McCullough.
George doing it now. Like, I've heard George say it multiple times. I'm like, Eddie, with you, I've stopped even trying.
That's good.
You're going to do you.
But George is a details guy.
Yeah. And I think it's just he's spending too much time with Eddie, and it's rubbing off negatively. So I'm concerned. But no, like Deshaun, like Kip Lewis is one of those guys that's just around the football, man. Like, he just has a great nose for it. Carey mentioned he's done this since high school. I mean, he really is just a guy that, we talk about instincts and how he sees it. And I don't care where he's at on the field. He's a guy that if he can do the basic things I need him to do, assignment wise, I want him on the field because he's going to make my defense better.
And by the way, I remember, the one thing I'd give to Kip Lewis about size is I remember going and covering Alabama when C.J. Mosley was there and thinking to myself we're talking like this was before Reuben Foster, but I just remember seeing him and being like, that's the guy that everybody's talking about that's, the best linebacker in the country, because he wasn't very big. Like, he just looked like a normal dude. And I was like, well, he's on Alabama. He's got to be pretty good, or maybe everybody else is covering up for him. But you don't have to be, you don't have to look like the Boz to be a great linebacker. I mean, like C.J. Mosley was the guy to me that proved that.
Yeah, I mean, guys, look at OU's best pass rusher of the last decade.
Mm-hmm.
Eric Stryker.
Yep.
Sometimes a football player is just a football player, and that's that. And I had plenty of doubts about Stryker and thought there was not enough credit given to some of his downside. But you're not asking Kip Lewis to be the defensive end. I mean, you're just asking him to play in space, and that's, I feel, again, we'll see. I mean, right now he's made some good plays, and that, I'm obviously excited about his potential, but I think we've got to see him play more and kind of see the warts too, see what bad comes of it.
Other outside of everything else on either side of the ball, doing Monday Morning Idiot, did anything stick out to you that maybe we didn't talk about on the Eskridge Alexis postgame podcast?
Trying to think of anything that really caught my attention. I would say probably, and again, it's not any surprise, the first thing that comes to mind is Caden Green. I thought Caden Green really had a nice day. Had a few blocks where he just buried some guys. The one that everybody saw was the one, and I mean, it was kind of, I don't know that he buried him. Both guys just kind of went down. It was the one on the Marcus Major touchdown that ended up getting called back on Tyler Guyton's holding. But Caden Green and that guy are, behind the end zone getting into it. So you'd heard, and I know it's something Gabe had talked about, was, they wanted him to be more physical, a little more aggressive. And I think he took that message to heart. I mean, that he looked like a guy that was ready to mix it up and get out there and kind of get after some guys. And I also thought Troy Everett played really well. I thought he had some good moments. It's pretty clear right now those are probably the guys they see as their top 2 reserves. I
was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you about that. Like, I don't know. I guess I was a little bit surprised to look up in the middle of the first or second quarter.
Yeah, you got
and Troy
Jake
Everett's
Taylor,
out there.
Troy Everett,
Jake Taylor's out
Caden
there.
Green, yep.
And with the way that the game was going, I think that they wanted to get some guys some run. But even Nate Anderson being out there in that second unit, I know that he'd run at guard throughout the scrimmages, but I guess I was a little bit surprised by that. I don't know.
Nate actually had some decent moments. Obviously I think the most extensive we'd seen him play, the most amount of time. I thought he had some really good moments. There was Jake Taylor, who we all know has been a favorite of mine for a long time and a guy that I think is really going to be a good player. I still think he's a guard. I think at tackle sometimes he struggles with quickness. I thought a few times he was out in space and just didn't look very comfortable. But again, I still think, looking at this offensive line, guys, we got some, late in the game, you saw some Logan Howland, some Heath Ozida. I mean, you saw really as they got deeper down into that group. And I was talking to Owen Hollenbeck, the 2025 offensive lineman from Melissa, that's Nigel Smith's teammate. And he was talking about how much he enjoyed watching the third string get out there and even was moving some people around. So they unloaded the clip, man. Everybody it was very much all hands on deck, as we all know.
That has to be the most players OU's played in a game in 20 years.
And that's how you build depth. I mean, I think that's what hurt them so much last year when injuries started to come along, or guys were, for whatever reason, weren't available. They didn't have that time, where like we've seen OU so many years just bomb people out of the stadium and the backups got some time. But I think it was pretty clear they were going to seize that opportunity and run everybody out there, and to do that and still maintain your shutout and do all the other things you wanted to do, I thought was a really good sign for the the depth of the roster.
There's been a lot of talk about that just within some of the Monday, Tuesday interviews that we did. I know Kenai talked about it last night, how excited everybody was that they were able to hold on to the shutout. I mean, I've seen that thing where they've played really good for 3 quarters and then all of a sudden the drop-off is just massive. And, Arkansas State, I think, played a little part of that, but...
Who was that player you referenced just now?
Kenai Walker.
Oh, there it is.
Forced fumble. You're never going to be mispronounced
Caleb
again.
Kelly did. Just ripped it right away.
I will say, just talking to Kenai, that was the first time that I think we've been truly up close to him.
Very impressive.
He's kind of like a Gentry Williams.
Gentry's been hurt thicker. So much.
Yeah.
So we never knew what he can actually do. And maybe now we'll actually get to see it. But he was so different when they brought him in from the portal from any other corner that was on their roster at the time.
And we'll see what
I was going to ask you, with being around everybody the last couple of days, getting to talk to people, what's the general temperature on SMU? Like I watch them. I've got to think it helps the staff a little bit that SMU just went out there and just kicked the shit out of Louisiana Tech for the first half on Saturday.
I'd say the one word that comes to mind is just respect. They really respect. They respect that this team could beat them. And like Kenai was talking about it last night, like this summer they had a lot of talk about the way the season went last year. They coming out of the Nebraska game thinking that they are on top of the world, and then the way the rest of the season went, like they want to prevent that from happening. So they're not. I really did believe him when he said, we're not overlooking anything.
There's such a feeling right now, and talking to all the players after the game, talking to players on Monday and Tuesday, it's so easy to say it, but it just feels like culturally this thing is so far along from what it was, I don't know, a year ago for sure, but, like 3 years ago, it's not even, to steal a phrase from Brent Venables, it's not even on the same planet.
Yeah, and they can go another hot Saturday without someone cramping. I mean, that's just a credit to what they've been able to do in the summer and conditioning. I mean, I don't know what those Arkansas State injuries actually were, But man, that slowed that game down considerably. Felt like every other play, one of their guys was going down, and the Sooners had no issues at all in that type of
environment.
Environment. I'll say it. I'll get it. Get it.
There was, I don't know, and we'll see. I think that everybody around there feels pretty optimistic about the defense. I know that you talk to the players, and they kind of what Carey said. They don't want a repeat of last year. It does feel like it's in a better spot, but Saturday's going to be a pretty good test. Like I don't think anybody's going to be crowned per se after the game on Saturday night, but I do think if you go out there and you shut down, which is going to be a pretty good offense for SMU, you can kind of take that next step. Everything's going to be incremental. I'm not going to completely buy in until they do it repeatedly, but Saturday was the first opportunity and successful.
I'm going to throw one more thing out to Josh because we've heard it all week about the pass rush. Oh, there's no way they could really get it going with how Arkansas State was trying to do things. Doing the idiot again. Is it overblown about the pass rush, or is it a legitimate concern?
I think it's a legitimate concern. I mean, and I think it's absolutely something that can be okay. I didn't see anything that said, well, if this was just, if he was in a deeper drop, or if they're running longer routes like that, it's all going to be squared away and fine. I can hear that argument. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying I don't think anyone could come away with a concrete feeling of what was happening. Because the only guy that I thought was consistent in his pressure was Rondell Bothroyd.
Right.
I thought he did a nice job. He came around the edge a couple of times, and I think if not for those 3 set drops, yeah, he probably has a couple sacks. Like I think he was very close on a couple of occasions. Now, what I did like a little bit more seeing the second go around, I thought there was better pressure up the middle than I remembered. Guys like Isaiah Coe, I thought got some push. DJ Terry got some push. But around the edges, I really didn't see a lot, like Bothroyd. There wasn't as much, and I know Ethan Downs had a sack, and really he had one that he almost tracked down the quarterback again earlier in the game, where he'd come all the way across the field. Guys, that was something, and I talked about it in The Idiot, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. He looks a little lighter. He looks a little more explosive and more like the guy that I remember in high school. And I'm wondering if all that weight he put on, which we kind of thought was leading to him maybe moving inside last year, that obviously didn't happen. Like I feel like a little bit of that came off, and maybe he's a little better as a defensive end for it.
What are your thoughts on running backs after seeing what you saw?
I guess.
I don't know if George wants to come in here and just kill me about Tawee Walker, but
even some of the game tape that just the stuff that I shot, Javonte Barnes has a little bit more of a, I guess, presence about him. Like
I'm thinking the same thing.
And maybe it's because we've seen it before and we're just not as familiar with Tawee. But I think there was some of the stuff that you went over in the Monday Morning Idiot that they probably bust it if they're just a little bit more patient. And I think that stuff will come with time and learning how to run behind an offensive line. This particular starting group of the offensive line, I don't know. I thought that they ran the ball pretty well, though. It just being down on the field, I was super impressed with how hard Dalen Smothers and Caleb Hicks ran the ball. And I know that they're probably, at the end of the day, nobody gets injured, Josh. Probably not going to be a big part of the offense once you get to conference play. But, goddamn, they look good.
I really liked what I saw of Caleb Hicks. And then going back in the second viewing, I remember hearing all that buzz back in the spring. Like, this guy's going to push the starters. Like, he's that good. And obviously, I don't know if it was an injury. Something clearly slowed him up for him to come into the game as late as he did. But there's stuff to like there. I mean, there's a lot more suddenness than I remember seeing in high school. I don't know if they they took a little weight off of him. I don't know if they'd found something with his feet, but I mean, like, I watched this kid up close in high school. Like, I didn't see this. And so to see him doing some of the stuff he's doing, it impresses me. I mean, it's clearly a guy they evaled as a player that they could do more with than they even had to date. So I liked him. Dalen Smothers reminds me of somebody, and I can't put my finger on who it is. Like the quick spins and how like kind of light-footed he is. Like there's a part of me, and I think it's the number, but I'm like, there's a little DeMarco in there. Like there's a little to that game where he's so elusive, even like, because I thought that was what was so amazing about DeMarco. DeMarco could be surrounded by three guys, and he's still spinning and juking and like doing that, and like just like, oh, I'm going to get the yards I can get and go on. Like he still was always, and Smothers is that same way. Smothers will be spinning while somebody's wrapped him up in a tackle, and you're like, you don't have to do that, man. So there's just a lot of kind of frenetic energy in the way he runs.
Want to remind you guys, primeshrimp.com, Prime shrimp.com. Go check them out. Use the promo code U40 to get 25% off your entire order of $50 or more. They ship it straight to you, frozen. And all you have to do is boil some water, throw one of the pouches in less than 10 minutes, you're going to have a restaurant-quality meal. You can choose from a variety of different flavors. If you're more into the Cajun Louisiana shrimp boil, they have that, the French Quarter Alfredo. You want something that's a little bit more lighter. You have a lot of options there as well, like the lemon and cracked pepper. I don't know, shrimp. The garlic. I mean, that's what it is. It's shrimp. The garlic or butter shrimp. I was thinking it had some other name. Anyway, you can get the unseasoned Simply shrimp too if you want to just thaw it out and do it on the grill. But gluten-free options. Is it keto-friendly? I always get in trouble for bringing that word up. And Whole30 friendly options. So go check them out. Primeshrimp.com. Don't worry about paying those DoorDash or Grubhub fees. Have some shrimp in your fridge. And remember, get at least $50 worth. They're about $10 a pack, and you get 25% off your entire order using that promo code U40. Yeah, thanks to Prime Shrimp for always being a great sponsor of the pod. Okay, SMU moving forward. Like, Josh, let's start with you. Like, what do you want to see? I mean, I think the obvious thing is pass rush. Because, and look, I understand that Arkansas State went in there trying to get rid of the ball as fast as they can. And we've seen teams do that over the years against Oklahoma. It's nothing new. But it also left you with questions. Whether or not you want to say the pass rush is no good and you're concerned, I think what, Josh, you and I were saying like on Twitter is that's the only thing we didn't see. We're not saying they can't rush the passer the rest of the year or it won't develop or, that Brent's not going to throw some exotic blitzes out there to cover up some of that stuff. But we all know PJ didn't play much, and he could be a third down specialist, here in several weeks. I mean, once he gets fully healthy. But like outside of pass rush, what are the biggest questions you want answered when you see them take on SMU?
Yeah, and just to add to your point, our Mason Thomas returning too, obviously is huge for Oklahoma.
And by the way, real quick, Eddie, on the injuries, let's get that out there because we didn't mention that. And I know George has asked some about it, but
the answer is there were no answers to the question.
To
basically.
the guys that got out Saturday, we have no update.
But we saw
it was good news.
We know Gavin Sawchuk and our Mason Thomas.
But we saw Drake Stoops out at practice last night. Didn't have a sling on. He was out there with the team. We did see Deshaun McCullough on the end with a boot on coming off field. And that's been the last 2 days. He's had a boot on. Brent did say it's not a high ankle sprain.
And that's the good news because I think that's something that they don't believe those high ankle
they
sprains,
take forever.
They linger, and then all of a sudden you look up and it's the second weekend of October, and you don't have one of your big time transfers.
And they don't want to rush you out there because you could re-injure it, and then it'd be just as bad or not worse than it was before.
I think Drake will try to play on Saturday, and if it was up to me, I'd just tell Deshaun, like, if you aren't like 110% good. And, how that trickles down to the cheetah position. Do you see more of Peyton Bowen at cheetah? or do you see more Reggie Pearson, and then that allows Peyton Bowen to get on the field at safety? It'll be interesting to see how they, kind of break all that down or how they play that. But I think all things considered, it was good news.
Did Jacob Sexton dress out?
No, he did not.
No, he did not.
Nope.
Okay. So that probably tells you a little bit. He's a little ways away still. Okay, so anyway, Josh, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to. I thought about that and I forgot, and I wanted to get that in before I forgot again. So back to the original question: things that you're hoping to see that are better against SMU.
Well, I think aside from the pass rush, which I think we've covered and everybody understands. I want to see this team defend the deep ball. Like this is something SMU is going to throw at them. They are going to go vertical. They've got some speed guys outside. Preston Stone likes to work downfield. I think you're going to get a feel for how good this team is. I thought Woody Washington had a really underrated game against Arkansas State, batted away a couple of balls. He only got credit for one pass breakup. I swore he had two.
I know. I said in the post game, like he did. I know he had at least a few or a couple of pass breakups. He defended. Like there's not a defended stat. It's just like if you touch the ball, then it's a pass breakup. But if you're in position and the ball's overthrown, you don't get a PB.
He gives me Carey Cook's flashbacks with him. He turns the last second to find the ball. God,
as long as it's not
turn around.
As long as it's not TCU Woody Washington. Yeah, that is.
But no, and then
I was going to say
obviously
he has a
with
lot of
Gentry.
I was going to say, did he follow a lot of porn stars on Twitter or something? What's the correlation? Anyway, go ahead.
Behind the curtain there. But no. Like I said, I want to see how the safeties deal with it. I think Billy Bowman's going to be really important this week because he's going to be the guy running it back there. He's going to play center field. Peyton Bowen talked about it, where there's going to be some 50-50 balls, and Oklahoma's going to have to be the athletic guys that can make these plays. But, for OU fans, listen, like SMU has guys who can make these plays. Don't mistake it for a second. I mean, Jordan Hudson, like Eddie mentioned early, that guy used to be an OU commitment. He was a guy Lincoln Riley and those guys recruited and wanted and was at TCU last year. So this is a group that has a lot of skill position talent. You as you look at the overall game, one of the things I'm kind of interested to see is what Oklahoma's offensive line can do with with SMU's defensive line. Louisiana Tech guys ran for 1.2 yards per carry against SMU's front. Now, I'm not telling you La Tech's got a great offensive line. They don't. It's bad. Poor Hank Bachmeier was running for his life. But at the same time, it's clearly a unit good enough to present Oklahoma with a different level of challenge than they saw last week. And I thought the offensive line was good, but it wasn't where it needed to be, in my opinion. I mean, they still got a ways to go. So I'm kind of interested to see if those big guys can get in there and kind of bully them around a little bit. And they're going to obviously play probably a little more football this week than they did. Maybe the size of that Oklahoma offensive front wears SMU down a little bit through the game.
It's not something that I want to see. Well, it's not improved, but almost you want to see the same. Can he do it again? Dylan Gabriel was great on Saturday.
Yeah.
Take that, Josh.
That was the best that I've seen him maybe be, just in terms of precision and throwing the football. I thought he was excellent.
Guys, I'm even annoyed because the national narrative is all like, did you see Jackson Arnold? Yeah, I mean, Jackson Arnold was great, but like Dylan Gabriel was really good. Jackson Arnold got to be that great for that long because Dylan Gabriel was outstanding.
I mean,
did you get the sense this week like it's kind of a sore subject for Dylan Gabriel getting pulled at halftime? Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but
me and Bob talked about this. He was in a great mood on Monday.
He's in a terrible mood Saturday.
He was pissed off when we talked to him on Saturday. It's probably because I wasn't over there.
That's got to be it.
But
possibly.
I want to see Jaleel Farouk and Austin Stogner show up. Or is Farouk not a number one guy, and that's just the way it's going to have to be?
I just don't think that they needed him. Like, I think it was pretty vanilla, and they just...
Everything was vanilla. Yeah, everything was vanilla.
But
it was almost like they wanted to, okay, let's try Andrell Anthony. Okay, that worked. Let's try Jaden Gibson. Okay, that worked. Did Gavin Freeman have a catch?
He had a touchdown catch.
Touchdown.
Well,
that's right.
It's not a touchdown catch. That's not a touchdown.
It was behind the line.
Yeah. it is kind of crazy that Gavin Freeman has yet to catch a football and run with, or like an actual
any
reception
further down the field than like 5 yards.
Yeah, like an actual reception that led to a touchdown. He's had a couple of those reverses and stuff like that,
Right.
and obviously the punt return, but he has yet to have that yet.
So that was
almost had
technically a
the-
rush for a touchdown.
No, technically it was a reception.
One of those flips.
It was a pop pass.
Yeah. Technically it was a reception, but
Come on now.
it is what it is.
It's the stupid pass where if they drop it, it's incompletion. So offensive coordinators are like, yeah, let's just, instead of hand it, let's do that because if there's a mess up or whatever. So, no, I mean, Bob, I guess, do you have something to add there as far as what you want to see that you didn't see in week one?
Yeah, just Farouk and Stogner. I mean, it's great that you got all these guys involved, but you're going to need these guys with all that experience to start showing up. And, we've seen what Stogner's done the last 2 seasons. We want to see the jump as he returned back to OU, or like physically, mentally. He's in a great state of mind. He's ready to make this season count. I know Levy said they dialed up a couple things for him. It just didn't pan out. Well, let's see if Saturday can be that type of game to where we feel confident that Stogg's going to bring it every single time.
We talked to Blake Smith yesterday. I wasn't around, but I know he spent a lot of time talking to the media and stuff. But I mean, they're going to try. I mean, they're going to keep putting someone out there, and whoever it is that's going to make the plays is going to end up kind of becoming that guy for Dylan.
Sure. I think that,
but no,
wide receiver though, it was far better that they got Nick Anderson and Jaden Gibson going than having to repeatedly feed the ball to somebody like a Jalil Farouk.
I agree. I was going to say about the same thing. Like, I'm not worried about Farouk, and I know there's been Farouk slander on this podcast. I haven't appreciated it. I've kind of slandered Tawi Walker, so we're all even. But I do want to see Javonte Barnes get more carries just to see, as Josh says, can you just avoid tacklers? Is that okay in your world? To see maybe if that starts clicking a little bit more, because I want to see Javonte Barnes get in the open and see if he can outrun a defense, because we haven't seen that. I don't even know if we've come close to seeing that, Josh. I mean, there's been a couple of shoestring tackles here and there with him.
Well, and the most interesting part about all of this is with all the 5 running backs that they played on Saturday, you're adding another in Gavin Sawchuk this week.
And here's the
thing.
thing.
Who may be the most talented of the bunch.
Yeah, here's the thing about that running back room, too. It can be such a change up from one guy to the next. Like, to go from Tawi Walker to Gavin Sawchuk, who is more of a speed guy. Like, even though he was huge in high school, I understand that, Josh. Like, you went and saw him up in Colorado and just, physically dominating. But like in college, he's what we saw from Florida State. He's the guy that sees a hole and squirts through it quickly. Like, that could be a really nice change up. And then you talk about the freshman Caleb Hicks, Dalen Smothers, whatever. Like, how much of a change up are they from a Javonte Barnes and a Tawi Walker? I'm really going to be interested to see if they get back to kind of the days that when we had it was the backfield with Trey Sermon. Like, you had Trey Sermon would come in and kind of be the hammer to who was the starting to Kennedy Brooks, right?
You had Rodney
Kennedy Brooks
and Rodney Anderson.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, did you really have Rodney Anderson? Like, my God, like the best running back that I can't even remember how many full years he had. 1.
27. That wasn't even a full year, because it was really about mid-season when he came on that Kansas State game and had the big touchdown
and
run.
almost killed Bob. I remember that.
Yes. Well, Dimitri Flowers almost killed
that was Dimitri Flowers.
But it was the Rodney Anderson touchdown run. And that you only got that shot because Abdul Adams went down. And so that allowed Anderson to finally get some touches.
The previous staff took Abdul Adams over Josh Jacobs. Just a fresh reminder for everybody.
But they offered, though, right?
They did offer.
Okay, so
before Alabama.
By the way, I want to say this. Like, there was so much stuff about the pink out or whatever, and people were asking me about that. Like, it was never an official deal. And I think at first I kind of was like, well, I don't know how Brent would feel about that. Like, his wife is actively fighting cancer. Like, does he want to be reminded of that, like, during the game? But I think, and eventually I was just like, look, guys, just do what you want. Like, I would imagine at the end of the day, if he sees pink, it'll be cool. Like, he'll appreciate that you guys were supporting he and his family and his wife. I think that's how it ended up. So, I mean, I want to give a kudos to the fans that did that, because that ended up being a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, it was really cool, and I was almost a little bit surprised how many people ended up wearing pink.
See, and I didn't notice it till the game wore on, but like when the game was starting, did you notice a lot of pink?
Yeah, quite a bit. It was cool. That was really cool. Lindsay Street was not.
No, Lindsay Street's a whole nother. And look, I kind of put it out there on Twitter.
I think it is going to get better. I really do.
It is going to get better, but the university, I'm going to say this, they're making fans jump through hoops that they don't need to jump through. They could be making it a lot easier. They could be a lot more welcoming. I mean, for them to be like, we're going to open up Lindsay Street because we're moving to the SEC and we want this atmosphere to be great. We're going to move the Walk of Champions to where they're coming down the tailgate row, basically. Like, if you really want to make a tailgate row, University of Oklahoma, do more. Do more to help these people who...
Or actually do less. Don't do anything.
Don't be as restrictive, yeah.
Right.
But, I mean, they could help by, making that a 3-lane road. I mean, I've gone down Lindsay like 4 or 5 times now since we found out about this. Just going, okay, they could make 3 lanes out. There's no doubt to me they could make 3 lanes out of that. They'd have to put up cones and get some effort and maybe spend some money and maybe get some campus security to make sure everything was going smoothly. But you could have a lane where people could stop and drop their stuff off because that has to happen. And, maybe you run a tram like from Lloyd Noble back to the stadium or something for those people. I think they do that anyway, don't they, for people?
I don't know.
Sure.
They used to. I don't know if they still.
Yeah,
I don't know if they do for the RV people or what, but there's got to be some help here because this is. I talk to people all week. And I get it. Like, tailgating is a lost art for some people. I had some people responding like, well, they don't have power outlets and the Wi-Fi is not very good. That's not what tailgating is. Like, have you been camping? Like, they don't have power outlets out in the wilderness. Like, you have to have a generator and you have to have, like, a satellite. And some people with satellites did contact me. They're like, my concern about moving our tailgate to Lindsay is I don't know if I can get a signal right there in front of the dorms. And I think that's something that needs to be figured out. But it's a pain in the ass to do. I mean, Josh, you remember back in the days when Gerdansky would run our tailgate and everybody's like, well, why don't you guys get it started? I'm like, we just don't have time for that. And the other thing is, it is such an undertaking. You have to have a couple of people, like that takes over their life. And people are fine with that because it's so fun to do. But the university has to realize the people that are doing this, they're jumping through a lot of hoops just to do it now. Man, I got the hiccups. I'm fighting them off. So when you make it restrictive and you make it difficult, I mean, that was ridiculous. Say 7 a.m. for an 11 a.m. kickoff. There's no way that you're going to set up a tailgate.
Well, and just some of the rules that they put in place are just
like no loud
obnoxious.
music.
I mean, that's. Is that a joke? Is that are they playing a bit?
Do
is this
they
a goof?
know how loud gas generators are? Like, come on.
Wait a second. There's no loud music?
That's what one of the guidelines is for the Lindsay Street tailgating. No loud music because they don't want to bother the students that live in the dorms, which is it's so mind-blowing and almost such a slap in the face that I don't like. What are you trying to prove?
Is that like a dorm full of Jason Kersey's? Like, I mean, are they not kids?
It's just ricochet shot. Sorry, Kersey. It's so outlandish that it's almost like this idea that when they made the campus dry, that people weren't still going to drink somehow in college. Like, get out of here. That's just ridiculous. I do think, but with that said, I do think it's going to get better. I think that there was a lot of people that
outlaw Mike Hosty at the deli.
I mean, well, then you're talking about there will be riots. It would be like January 6th around here, but it will be.
You don't need. I think it's going to be better.
It's going to be better. I hope that it's going to be better, and especially with a somewhat of a late evening kickoff. Hopefully people get down there and have fun on Saturday. It's going to be somewhat of a nice day. I know it's going to be hot, but whatever.
They're from the Lindsay Street Grand something.
Well, I just
getting a little KKK.
I've
yeah,
had people
don't call me a Grand Wizard.
I've had
Nick
people
Harris
want
already
you to
did.
lead people out there on the Lindsay Street, Eddie. Like,
I mean, I might have
You're
to.
going to start the revolution.
I might have to. I was disappointed though with the I don't know. I guess I just assumed that fraternities and sororities were going to send pledges over there and
Have them set up
tents and all that kind of stuff. But I get it. Like, it is a big undertaking. I remember it being a big undertaking when we were in school. But
Well, and here's
you
the
wanted
thing,
to do
too.
it because it was fun.
Here's the thing too, like I know a guy that was a SAE at OU, and of course they don't have a house now, but their alumni group, like their Pledge Brothers, I'm sure, got together with some other Pledge Brothers, and they said let's have a tailgate, and they ordered like the VIP stuff over on Lindsay and Jenkins. And he was like, well, we would love to be on Lindsay Street, but they announced it 2 weeks ago, so we already bought our package. So I think also next year, if this is successful, you'll get people that plan. Joe C probably doesn't want to hear this, but you'll get people to plan to move to Lindsay.
Yeah. And I still think that we're talking about a situation that you just got to give it time. I know that it was disappointing on Saturday, but there will be better opportunities to tailgate than before an Arkansas State game at 11, in which there was a lot of people that just said, F that, I'm not even going down to Norman. And I think that there will be a pretty good group this week. Just the Oklahoma City-Dallas crossover, I think there's a lot of people planning to come in town.
All right.
Yeah, you'd expect some people to travel together, OU and SMU fans from Dallas kind of thing.
Yeah,
Well, and
hopefully
George-
they aren't checking for cocaine bags at the border. You know what I mean? I know you Dallas people. I know what's going on in Highland Park.
Anyway, so I know George did ask Brent about the atmosphere and the walkthrough, kind of in a nice way, and Brent said, Brent I thought had a kind of a scathing comment that went under the radar, which was once we got to the stadium, the atmosphere was fine. So
It goes back to what we kind of started this endeavor about. When you bring recruits in, that's where they enter the stadium on the south side of the.
And think about like
south
when we
end
were
zone.
at Tennessee, like the Tennessee Walk. Like we were up there watching it from the press box. Like that's a big damn deal. Like that's impressive to recruits when you see that stuff. And that's why OU started doing it in the first place.
No doubt.
So it's got to be better.
Absolutely. I mean, like, you talk to guys that go to other schools, places like Tennessee, where it's a really big deal. That's a huge part of the recruiting weekend. Now, they will mention it specifically, like, oh, the walk was amazing, blah, 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 all the fans and that kind of stuff. So, I mean, it is like we get people that at the same time, like, oh, use recruiting's got to get better. Well, man, do your part. Like, there's some lifting here that you can do and, get out there. I know that a lot of people say, oh, it's not my job. Well, you get to sit there and drink beer and listen to moderately loud music, apparently. So, get out there. Do your part. This is, if I have to dress Eddie up like Charlie Steiner and lead the people to freedom, I guess that's what we got to do.
That'd be amazing.
By the way, that was a great Manning Cast commercial. Did you see that one? Where the people are coming in, like interviewing to be the co-hosts.
Oh, I saw the videos rolling around on Twitter. I thought that those were like real auditions, and I just completely scrolled by it. It's a commercial?
Yes.
Okay.
They like try and put sleeves on Pat McAfee because they're sick of. They said you can't work with somebody without sleeves, and Tom Brady is in it. It's pretty good. Reese Witherspoon makes an appearance.
That's worth watching.
So, all right, Bob. I don't know. Did you ever get anything from Porter on the whole arena deal?
Not yet, but now that it's done, maybe he'll talk.
I mean, clearly
about
he's
it.
going to support that. I mean, he's the only person that's really come out and said how he really feels about Lloyd Noble.
He's been so vocal about it, and then you hear what George put out today. It's like they hope to vote for it by spring, and then it's going to take 3 to 4 years. There's going to be a lot of snide remarks saying, "Well, Porter Moser's never going to be around for it anyway." But I mean, it's clearly something Moser has mentioned repeatedly that this has to happen, and if he can recruit at a high level, like he got another one,
you, man, like
this week,
he is recruiting extremely well. 2 straight classes with 2 top 100 guys. Got another commitment yesterday. I think he is recruiting extremely well with two hands tied behind his back.
Yes, he knows how to recruit. He's got to figure out the portal a little bit better. I know he feels a little hamstrung by the name, image, likeness, what that situation looks like here. But Kuwal, Atak, you got a 6'9", about 190 pounds. Jamie Shaw from On3 considers him one of the better shooters in the entire class. On3 loves Kuwal. He's ranked number 71 in the entire country. And so now you've got Forsythe from Dale, got Kuwal, probably another one here coming here down the road. But, I mean, it's amazing that, you know, as much as it feels like the on-court struggles of the last 2 seasons, it has not affected high school recruiting. It might have played a role in transfer portal, but it has not impacted whatsoever what Porter's been able to do on the trail with the high school kids.
I had some thought in my head, but now, like, you know, Jenny Baranchik will play there too. I mean, like I said, Porter. I just wonder, like, do they keep Lloyd Noble? Does the earth take it? Do they just blast it? You know, what do you do? Like, well, I will say this:
have
like,
to keep the practice facility because that
Blake
is
Griffin
like a
performance.
very nice facility.
It's nice.
I don't know what the plan would be there. Get to that, cross that bridge when they get there. I think there's still a lot that has to be done for them to even get this vote to pass.
Telling Al Ashbeck how to pronounce George's last name right now.
Very good. I think that should do it, though. This has been a long one. We're gonna have a
an hour and a half. I don't want to. I feel like Eddie is. He's gun shy a little bit. I've told him to shorten everything for so long. Like, we do 2-hour pods all the time. Well, not all the time, but it happens. So I know there's a big fight on the YouTube comment section about, you know.
About what?
Don't let Carey tell you to make these shorter. We want long ones.
Oh, well.
But then there's also the people that are like, we love the shorter ones. Not that they hate you guys, but no, we've got some stuff we got going on, so we're gonna have to end it here. How you doing, George? George, you want to say anything? You want to at least be on the pod? You want to be on record as like you were here, ready to go?
I just want you to know that I just spent an ungodly amount of money on Zach Bryan tickets. They went on pre-sale. You don't even want to know.
For the peak or now the
Paycom?
It's
OKC Friday night, May 17th. Like the most amount of money I've ever spent on maybe almost anything in my life.
Well, you're a cheap bastard, so I'm going to say $200 a piece.
It's very clear.
$500?
I will tell you, they are on the floor. I bought floor seats.
Oh, okay.
That is north of $500. It's the most I've ever spent on concert
how many
tickets. One ticket.
You're not getting two?
No.
Came soon.
You're going to go by yourself.
There's a very good chance I don't go to this and I resell this ticket for $1,000.
It was an investment.
Yes, but
there you go.
I was going to buy two, and I was going to get up top, and they literally sold out. The only tickets they had left were floor seats, and so I panicked and just bought one.
So you don't have a relationship that's far enough along for you to
Correct.
spend $500 plus
I'm not going to
them.
project on what's going on in May in my life.
Let me ask you this: are you right or left-handed?
Right.
Going to that concert, you're going to need that afterwards. By yourself?
That's the end of the pod.
Thanks for joining, everybody.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll be back again next week for another edition of the Unofficial 40 podcast right here on Soonerscoop.com.